I felt the ground shake before I saw the shadow, and I knew the boy behind me was trembling. They say horses can sense danger before it arrives, that we can feel the shift in the air, the change in pressure, the way silence becomes a living thing. It's true. We feel everything. The world speaks to us in vibrations and scents and sounds that humans miss. And that day, in the late summer afternoon with the sun filtering through the pines, the world was screaming danger. But I didn't run. I couldn't run, because behind me, sitting small and fragile on my back, was a child who trusted me with his life. My name is Tonk, short for Tonkawa, though most people just call me Tonk. I'm a Percheron quarter horse mix, which means I'm built like a tank but move like the wind when I need to. 17 hands tall. Nearly 2,000 pounds of muscle and bone. Chestnut coat that turns copper in the sun. White blaze down my face that the boy says looks like a lightning bolt. I live on the Broken Creek Ranch in Montana, right where the mountains meet the plains, and the wilderness still remembers what it was like before humans carved their places into it. It's beautiful country, harsh country, the kind of place where nature doesn't ask permission and doesn't apologize. The ranch belongs to the Sullivan family, Jack and Martha Sullivan and their boy Ethan. Ethan is 8 years old, small for his age, quiet, the kind of kid who spends more time with animals than with other children, the kind who understands that sometimes silence says more than words ever could. I was born on this ranch. My mother was a massive Percheron draft horse named Duchess, brought here from a farm in Oregon. My father was a quarter horse stud named Storm, known throughout the county for his speed and spirit. The mix made me something unusual, strong enough to pull a wagon through mud, fast enough to chase down cattle, smart enough to know the difference between when to use strength and when to use speed. But more than any of that, I was gentle, at least with those who deserved gentleness. Ethan found me when I was 3 years old. He was 5 then. Just a little thing with messy brown hair and eyes the color of the sky before a storm. He wandered into the paddock one morning while his father was doing chores, and he walked right up to me without fear. Most children are nervous around horses my size. We're intimidating without meaning to be. But Ethan just reached up with his small hand and touched my nose. "Hi," he said softly. "You're really big." I lowered my head so he could reach me better. I don't know why. Something about him felt right. Felt safe. Felt like he needed me as much as I needed someone to need me. His father came running over, worried. "Ethan, careful. He's young. Still learning." But Ethan just smiled. "He likes me, Dad. I can tell." And he was right. From that day forward, we were bonded. Not in the way a rider and horse are usually bonded through training and repetition, but in something deeper, something that went beyond commands and obedience. Ethan would come to the stable every morning before school. He would brush my coat, talking to me about his day, his worries, his dreams. He told me things he didn't tell anyone else. About being scared at school, about missing his grandmother who had died the year before, about wanting to be brave like his father, but not knowing how. I listened. That's what I could give him. My presence, my attention. The feeling that he mattered. As he grew, so did our partnership. Jack taught him how to ride properly, how to sit in the saddle, how to guide with gentle pressure rather than force, how to communicate through breath and balance rather than yanking reins and kicking heels. But Ethan already knew most of it instinctively. He understood me in a way that couldn't be taught. He knew when I was tired or nervous, knew when I needed water or just needed to stand still for a moment, knew how to read my ears, my breath, the tension in my muscles, and I knew him just as well. I could feel his moods through the way he sat. When he was happy, he sat light and easy. When he was sad, he leaned forward like he was trying to get closer to my warmth. When he was scared, his legs would grip tighter and his breathing would shallow. We spent hours together, riding the fence lines, checking on cattle in the far pastures, sometimes just wandering through the meadows and forests that bordered the ranch, exploring, discovering, being free. Those were the days I lived for. The boy and me and the wide Montana sky, the scent of sage and pine, the sound of meadowlarks, the feel of wind rushing past as we galloped across open fields, Ethan laughing with pure joy, trusting me completely to keep him safe. And I would. I would die before I let anything hurt him. The day it happened was a Saturday in late August. School would be starting soon, and Ethan wanted one more adventure before summer ended. His mother packed him a lunch. His father checked my saddle and bridle, making sure everything was secure. "Stay on the trails," Jack warned, "and be back before dark." "We will," Ethan promised, patting my neck. "Right, Tonk?" I nickered softly. Of course we would. We set out mid-morning. The day was perfect. Warm, but not hot. Clear blue sky. The aspens were just starting to turn gold at their edges, the first hint of autumn approaching. We rode through the meadow behind the barn, then followed the trail that led into the national forest that bordered the ranch. This was our favorite route, through stands of lodgepole pine and Douglas fir, past a stream where we would sometimes stop to let me drink and Ethan would skip stones, up a gradual slope to a clearing where you could see for miles, the ranch below, the mountains beyond, the whole world spread out like a promise. We reached the clearing around noon. Ethan dismounted and pulled out his sandwich. I grazed on the sweet meadow grass while he ate, both of us content in the quiet companionship we'd perfected over the years. "Think we could make it to the ridge?" Ethan asked, pointing to a higher elevation about a mile away. "I've never been up there." I lifted my head, ears forward, considering. The ridge was higher than we usually went, closer to the deep forest where the wilderness was thicker, wilder. But the day was clear. We had time. I walked over and nudged his shoulder with my nose. "Yes, we could make it." Ethan grinned and mounted up. We left the clearing and continued up the mountain. The forest changed as we climbed. The trees grew closer together, the undergrowth thicker, the light dimmer, the sounds different. Fewer birds, more silence, the kind of silence that meant predators hunted here. I felt the change immediately. My ears swiveled constantly, tracking sounds Ethan couldn't hear. My nostrils flared, testing the air. Something felt wrong. Not dangerous yet, but wrong. Like the forest was holding its breath. "You okay, boy?" Ethan asked, feeling my tension through the saddle. I wanted to turn back. Every instinct told me to turn back, but I also didn't want to disappoint him. He was so excited to reach the ridge. We continued climbing. Then I smelled it, faint but unmistakable. Musk and fur and something ancient and wild. Bear. I stopped walking. My whole body went rigid. "Tonk, what is it?" I pawed the ground nervously. Bears weren't uncommon in these mountains. Usually they avoided humans and horses. Usually we could coexist without conflict. But it was late summer. They were eating heavily before hibernation. And if we'd stumbled near a kill site or a den, usually didn't matter. The scent was getting stronger, which meant we were getting closer, or it was getting closer to us. I needed to make a decision, turn around and head back down the mountain, or continue forward and hope we passed without incident. I chose to turn back, started to pivot carefully, not wanting to jostle Ethan. That's when I heard it. A grunt, low and deep and close. Too close. "What was that?" Ethan whispered, his voice suddenly small and scared. I looked toward the sound. Through the trees, maybe 30 yards away, I saw movement. Large, brown, massive, grizzly bear, male, at least 7 feet tall if he stood on his hind legs, maybe 800 pounds. And he was looking directly at us. For a moment, everything stopped. The bear, me, Ethan, the entire forest seemed to freeze, waiting to see what would happen next. I could feel Ethan's heart hammering against my back, could feel his small fingers gripping my mane too tight, could feel the terror radiating off him like heat. The bear took a step toward us, then another. I should have run. Every survival instinct in me screamed to run. I was fast. I could outrun a grizzly over distance. We could make it back to open ground before he caught us. But running triggers predators, running makes you prey. And Ethan wasn't secured properly for a full gallop through dense forest. If he fell, if he was thrown, the bear would be on him in seconds. So I didn't run. I stepped forward, placing myself between the boy and the bear. The bear stopped, surprised. Most prey runs. I wasn't running. "Tonk, what are you doing?" Ethan's voice was shaking. "We need to go." But I couldn't explain it to him. Couldn't tell him that movement would trigger the bear's chase instinct. Couldn't tell him that our only chance was for me to convince this massive predator that we weren't worth the trouble. I stood tall, made myself as large as possible, kept my eyes on the bear's eyes. Not challenging, not submitting, just present, just saying, "I see you, and I'm not afraid." But I was afraid, terrified. My legs were trembling, my breath coming fast and hard. Every muscle screamed at me to flee. Yet I didn't move. The bear took another step forward. He was maybe 20 yards away now. I could see his eyes, small and dark and intelligent. Could see his claws, long as my hooves, sharp enough to tear through hide and muscle like paper. He huffed, a warning sound, his way of saying, "Leave now, or I will make you leave." I pawed the ground, snorted, my own warning. "I have something precious behind me, and you're not getting to it." "Tonk, please." Ethan was crying now. "I'm scared." I was scared too, more scared than I'd ever been. But fear doesn't make you run when someone you love needs you to stay. The bear stood up on his hind legs, showing me how big he was, how powerful. In that position he was easily 8 feet tall, massive beyond comprehension, a living mountain of muscle and fury. I reared up to meet him, not as high, not as impressive, but enough to show I wouldn't back down. My front hooves struck the air. I screamed, the sound horses make when fighting, high-pitched and terrible. A sound that says, "I will die before I let you pass." And I meant it. Every fiber of my being meant it. Ethan was sobbing behind me. "Tonk, no, please, no." But there was no other choice. If I backed down, the bear would advance. If I ran, he would chase. This was the only way. Stand, fight if necessary, die if necessary. The bear dropped back to all fours, circled to my right, testing, looking for weakness, looking for an opening. I pivoted to face him, keeping Ethan behind me. My hooves dug into the forest floor. My muscles coiled, ready to strike if he charged. We were in a standoff. The bear wanting us to leave his territory. Me unable to leave without potentially triggering an attack. Time stretched. Seconds felt like hours. I could hear Ethan's ragged breathing, could feel the sun hot on my back despite the cool forest air, could smell pine and earth and the overwhelming musk of the bear. Then something shifted in the bear's eyes. A calculation, a decision. He huffed again, louder this time. Then he turned his head away. Not in submission, just in disinterest. like he'd decided we weren't worth the energy. He took one step, back, then another, still watching us, still ready to attack if we made a wrong move. I didn't move, barely breathed, just watched him retreat. He backed away another 10 feet, 20. Then he turned and walked into the forest. Not running, not hiding, just leaving. Accepting that this territory, for now, was contested. I waited until I couldn't see him anymore, until I couldn't smell him, until the forest started to breathe again and the birds began to call. Only then did I allow myself to lower my head, to shake from head to tail with the adrenaline and fear that had been coursing through me. "Tonk?" Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "Is he gone?" I turned my head to look at him. He was pale, tears streaking his face, but alive, safe, unharmed. I nickered softly. "Yes, he's gone. We're okay." Ethan slid off my back and wrapped his arms around my neck, pressing his face into my mane. He sobbed, great heaving sobs of relief and terror and gratitude. "You saved me," he kept saying. "You saved me. You stood in front of a bear. For me." I nuzzled him gently. Of course I did. What else would I have done? We stood there for a long time. The boy and the horse, both shaking, both alive, both understanding that something profound had just happened between us. Finally, Ethan pulled back and looked into my eyes. "I love you, Tonk. I love you so much." If horses could cry, I would have. Instead, I touched my nose to his forehead, the gentlest touch. My way of saying, "I love you too, and I always will." We made our way back down the mountain slowly. Ethan stayed mounted, but we moved carefully, both of us hyper-aware of every sound, every smell, every movement in the forest. When we finally emerged from the trees and saw the ranch in the distance, we both felt the tension drain away. We were home. We were safe. Jack came running when he saw us. He'd been worried, watching the time, about to come looking for us. "What happened?" he asked, seeing our state, seeing the fear still lingering in Ethan's eyes and the sweat dried on my coat. Ethan told him everything. The bear, how I stepped between them, how I refused to back down, how I saved his life. Jack's face went white. Then he looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Awe, respect, gratitude so deep it had no words. He approached slowly and placed his hand on my neck. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for bringing my boy home." The story spread through the county like wildfire. Everyone wanted to hear about the horse who faced down a grizzly to protect a child. News reporters came to the ranch. They took pictures, asked questions, called me a hero. But I wasn't a hero. I was just a horse who loved a boy, who couldn't imagine a world where I let harm come to him, who made a choice in a moment of terror, and somehow, miraculously, it worked. People don't understand the bond between humans and animals. They think it's about training, about commands and obedience, about one species dominating another. But it's not. It's about trust, about love, about recognizing that another being's life matters as much as your own. Ethan mattered to me. His laughter, his quiet conversations, his gentle hands and kind heart. He mattered more than my fear, more than my safety, more than my life. That's not heroism. That's just love, pure and simple and profound. Months passed. Winter came and went. Spring returned. Ethan started back at school. Life returned to normal, but something had changed between us. Not in our bond. That was stronger than ever, but in how we moved through the world together. Ethan rode differently now, not with the careless confidence of a child who's never truly faced danger, but with a deeper awareness, a respect for the wilderness and its power, an understanding that safety is never guaranteed, And love sometimes means standing between the ones you care about and the things that would hurt them. And I carried him differently too. Not as a burden or a responsibility, but as an honor, as a gift I'd been given. The privilege of protecting something innocent and pure and good. We still rode into the mountains, but never as far, and always with his father knowing exactly where we were going. The ridge remained unconquered. Maybe it always would be. Some places are meant to stay wild and unknown. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Ethan would come to the stable and just sit with me. He wouldn't ride, wouldn't even brush me, just sit and lean against my side while I dozed. I think about that day a lot, he told me once, about how scared I was, but also how safe I felt. Because even though there was a bear, there was you, and you didn't let anything happen to me. He paused. I want to be like you, Tonk. I want to be the kind of person who stands in front of scary things to protect the people I love. Even when I'm terrified, especially when I'm terrified. That's when I understood. What happened that day wasn't just about survival. It was about teaching, about showing this young human what courage really means. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite fear. It's choosing love over self-preservation. It's standing your ground when everything in you says to run. I didn't plan to teach him that lesson. I just lived it. And in living it, I showed him what he needed to see. That love is the strongest force in the world. Stronger than fear, stronger than danger, stronger than death itself. Years have passed now. I'm older, slower. My joints ache on cold mornings. The copper in my coat has faded to a duller brown streaked with gray. Ethan is older too, nearly a teenager, growing tall and strong, starting to look more like his father every day. He still comes to see me every day, still rides when the weather is good, still talks to me about his life, his worries, his dreams. And sometimes, when we're out on the trails, I'll catch him looking at me with this expression, like he's remembering, like he's grateful, like he understands that what passed between us that day in the forest was something sacred. People still talk about it. The horse who fought a bear, they say. The miracle on Broken Creek Ranch. But they misunderstand. I didn't fight. I simply refused to move. I planted myself between innocence and threat and said, "Not today, not ever." That's not fighting. That's loving. And love, when it's real and true and deep, is the most powerful force in the universe. My name is Tonk. I'm a Percheron quarter horse mix from Montana. I'm not famous. I'm not special. I'm not a hero. I'm just a horse who was given the greatest gift imaginable. Someone to protect, someone to love, someone whose life mattered more to me than my own. And when the moment came to prove it, when the ground shook and the shadow appeared and the boy behind me trembled, I did the only thing love knows how to do. I stood firm. I stood tall. I stood between what I loved and what would harm it. And somehow, miraculously, that was enough. They say animals don't understand sacrifice, that we act on instinct, not choice, that what I did was just biology, just programming, just the way horses are wired to protect their herd, but they're wrong. I chose. In that moment, with every option available to me, I chose to stay. I chose Ethan. I chose love over fear, and I would make that choice again, every single time, without hesitation, without regret, because that's what love is. It's not pretty words or grand gestures. It's standing between a child and a bear. It's trembling with terror, but not moving. It's facing down something massive and deadly and saying, "You'll have to go through me first." That day in the forest, I learned something about myself. I learned that I was capable of more than I knew, that courage lived in me, that love could make me stronger than fear. But more than that, I learned what it means to matter, to have purpose, to be someone's protector, someone's safety, someone's reason to feel brave. Ethan gave me that. He gave me meaning. And when the moment came to repay that gift, I didn't hesitate. The mountains are still there. The forests still wild. The bears still roam. Nature hasn't changed. The danger hasn't disappeared. But we're different now. Ethan and I. We carry that day with us. That moment when everything could have gone wrong, but didn't. When love proved itself stronger than fear. And in carrying it, we've become more than a boy and his horse. We've become proof. Proof that bonds between species are real. That love transcends language and logic. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to abandon someone who needs you. I never chose to be brave. I just couldn't let fear take the place where love stood. And in the end, that choice, that single, terrifying, impossible choice, made all the difference. Subscribe if you believe love is stronger than fear.